JD here, and as you can see, we are finally back with some league racing action. It's been a little while since I've been doing a league race video, had quite a busy time in real life, so I've actually missed the last 2 rounds of the GA SR series. Last race I did was Kota, and the previous races, including that one, things haven't really been going my way too much. You can see this is the championship standings because I have missed Brazil, and I also missed, there was something else I missed as well. I think it was Mexico. Yeah, Mexico and Brazil are the 2 rounds I missed. And Carl, my championship rival, took a win and then a P2 in those 2 races I was absent. So with 5 rounds to go now, including this, it's looking very, very bleak for the championship. But I think Carl has been by far the most consistent driver, and all we've got to hope for is a miracle now. But I was really looking forward to getting back into racing again, having basically a 3-week break. And as I said, the previous rounds, Kota and the races before that, things just haven't been going my way. And I think momentum is a very, very real and powerful thing in kind of any sport or anything you do. And the momentum certainly wasn't with me. So I was really looking to come back into this race hungry, a track that I actually really enjoy. I was looking to see if I can bounce back with a good result. So we make it through to Q3 fairly comfortably. Q1, Q2 wasn't completely optimal. This is my first run in the Q3, the final part of qualifying. And you can see as we're going through the chicane now, yeah, very, very minimal. But we get a track invalidation, and that's a corner you need to take a few risks on. Didn't get away with it that time, so we went out again on the used set of tyres just to try and get some sort of a banker lap in, and we do exactly the same thing again. So yeah, very, very tricky corner. So you can see we're the only driver who hasn't set a lap in Q3, which is definitely not ideal. I knew I could put up a good time, but having no delta to go against, that's something that is quite beneficial. So this is our final lap, and we pretty much have nothing to lose here. Zickle does a 13.4, so that's a pretty strong time. So no delta and nothing to lose, so we can't just go for it on this last lap. And this lap here was a very, very good one. The only mistake I made, I believe, is going through this turn 2. So coming into here, we missed the apex quite a bit, so could have been half a car's width closer towards that apex. But we still get a good exit. Him is saying not ideal there. And the first sector is a 26.5, which isn't too bad actually, considering I don't use any ERS down the main pit straight. Going through into chicane now. I was still going to take a risk through here because I need to be doing a good time. And this time, we don't get the track invalidation. And going for this section, this is some of my favourite sequences of corners on an F1 calendar. Going for this right-hander, completely flat out. The level of downforce we have in this car, completely flat. And again, I don't know if I'm purple. I have no delta to go against at all. I'm just trying to drive the best I possibly can. Going through the last 2 corners. This last sector, I think, was absolutely perfect. We did this really, really well. Throwing the car into the last corner, let the downforce do work for you. And Q headphone users, let's go across the line now. Come on, yes! We do a PB.
Let's fucking go, man.
Under pretty significant pressure, and in the end that was enough for pole by over half a tenth, so actually quite a good margin to the rest of the field. And those are my sectors there, so I was very, very happy with that. Now coming into the race where I always feel I'm at my absolute strongest, so medium to hard here, I think that's really the ideal strategy. So we've got 5 fights and just focusing on getting a good start. So I actually short shift to second gear. It's something I always do. And you can see we actually get a really, really good start. So just defending us inside and track position is very, very key around here. It's a difficult track to overtake as Carl actually goes a little bit deep. Almost loses second place. So I was trying to give Equal a little bit of slipstream here because I felt Carl, as always, is probably going to be my main threat this race. And I know I don't know if it's mathematically impossible to, well, I don't think it is mathematically impossible, but it's almost near impossible to beat Carl in this championship now, unless he has a few DNFs or something like that. So we've got to try and get as many points as we possibly can and get as many cars between myself and him as possible. But initially on this first lap, I was feeling really, really good. The race pace, I did a fair amount of practice for this, particularly on the race pace. And with the setup I'm using, there is a lot of rotation in this setup. It was definitely designed to be performing the best on the hard tyre, while on the harder compound it got to be more understeer. So qualifying was just a bonus. We managed to get the pole there. Just survive this first medium stint, which the mediums go off very, very quickly in this first stint. You can actually pit from lap 4 onwards to the end, so the hards are extremely durable, definitely the best tyre around here. And you can see, end of the first lap, we actually have a little bit of a gap, but DRS is enabled after lap 1. So maybe if it was in last year's game, we would have maybe pushed to get out of the DRS there, but as you can see, moving towards the end of lap 2, we're kind of maintaining the gap. So again, Carl isn't exactly hustling me at this point, setting another faster sap, so confidence is pretty high right now. But as we skip towards the end of lap 3, Carl starts getting to his groove, and at this stage of the race there is no real point fighting this at all. Ideally, if as long as I'm in the top 2 and I'm behind Carl, I don't want to be falling down to P3, having multiple cars between myself and him. This is kind of the sweet spot, so just got to make sure we stay with him, don't invite a overtake from the guys behind, and just manage yourselves at this stage of the race. So, but you can see coming towards the end of lap 7, I was actually struggling a little bit on this medium tyres because, again, as I said earlier, the setup I was running had a lot of oversteer and rotation, which was going to be very good on the hard tyre. But coming towards the end of this medium stint, the mediums go off actually really quickly. And as you look here, Ickle is going to decide to actually go into the pits, so you can pit very, very early around here. And then the hards are actually by far the fastest tyre at this stage of the race. Coming towards lap 8, we're going to see F1 Alwyn go into the box. So he's the other championship rival. He's the guy I'm basically fighting for P2 in this championship. And in previous races, I've always gone for a bit of an overcut. That was a mistake I wasn't going to be making in this race. So I was really hoping that Carl would continue, or even if he boxes us up, I was going to box as well. So we're not going to follow him. We're going to go for this undercut and actually get the track position. So I knew Ickle and Alwyn would be undercutting us, but if I can come out quite close to them and try and get them 2 cars between myself and Carl towards the end of the race, use them as a shield, then that was kind of the thinking. So learning from previous mistakes, we're not going to go for an overcut here, put myself out in no man's land. We need to be with the train, and I think we definitely made the right decision. I think you'll see towards the end of this race, this was a very good decision. So you see Ickle going into turn 1, so that's quite a big undercut, but now we come out just behind Alwyn, so this is absolutely perfect. So we're going to be within that DRS zone, but as we come on the exit of turn 1, you can see a ball of smoke, and that's Ickle completely spinning out, smashing into the barrier, and very, very close to making contact. Luckily he put on the brakes, otherwise that could have been both of our races over. And I think that was purely just a driver error from him. I think went a bit deep into turn 1 and tried to catch up the traction. But as we come towards the end of lap 10 now, F1 Alwyn is really pushing hard the ERS right now, because I think he wants to try and get ahead of Carl. And you can see he sets a fast up race, so we actually miss out on the DRS slightly. You see Carl now comes out of the pit, so we're using all our batteries, so it's really crucial that we get out ahead of him, because otherwise Carl will be a net P2, and that's really the best position to be in around this racetrack. So now we're exactly where we want to be. Having a lap fresher tyres with the hards around here really isn't a big deal, and it isn't really a big deal in general on this game. So we're in net P2, and no, exactly where we want to be. Alwyn makes a bit of a mistake here, and you can see we're saving quite a bit of the ERS, so ERS management has been really, really good so far. Carl is still getting up to temperature with his hard tyres, and we're just going to try and get this move done. And the goal really in my mind was to stay ahead of Alwyn and give him the DRS at all times, so Carl can't overtake him. So we still have hope for this championship, despite how difficult it looks on paper. We need to be maximising these points as much as we possibly can. So a very good move into turn 1, hitting the apex very nicely, getting the DRS on the exit. And the goal right now is to keep Alwyn right behind me for the entire race. Obviously still staying ahead of him, but making sure Carl doesn't get past him. But as we move to lap 15, we're starting to catch some of the hard runners who haven't pitted. So we are a net P1 in this race right now. But as we go through into this last corner, you guys see there's a little bit of a incident, a yellow flag in sector 2. Someone's retired and a safety car has come out, and that isn't really a big deal because the people on the hards, that's actually probably the worst time it could have come out, because the mediums again, they go off after 5 to 7 laps. So we're not going to pit, we're going to stay on these hard tyres. And this is exactly where I want to be. So the people on the alternate strategy, that actually really wasn't ideal for them. So not making a mistake or pitting or boxing over at all, getting a good run to restart the race. And again, this is exactly where I want to be. Having a car or multiple cars between myself and Carl, giving them the DRS, which is actually going to be effectively using them as a shield against Carl, because I know Carl is extremely fast. But you can see as we move on to lap 22, we're actually starting to create a little bit of a gap to Alwyn. But again, I actually didn't really want to break his DRS because I wanted him to use the DRS so he could stay ahead of Carl. So yeah, unless there was a significant gap or there's an instant behind, then let's go push. But you can see, I think we actually do decide to push with the ERS now, because I can see we're very close to outside of a second. Carl moves into P2, but because he's going to get DRS in the exit this turn 1, we maybe should have gambled on it, maybe half a lap before, and then really push, because I felt my pace was really good, particularly on this hard tyre. But you can see he's well within a second, and yeah, we're going to push maybe a little bit again, but I very quickly realised there is absolutely no point in doing that. But as we move on to halfway through lap 26, you can see the gap between me and Carl is a pretty decent one at the moment, as a safety car comes out again. And now with 9 laps to go, we have a set of fresh mediums. This could actually be quite useful, because the hards, we've been on this tyre for quite a while now, so even if the mediums go off after 5 to 7 laps, they're probably still going to be a lot quicker than the hards with 9 laps to go and having quite a big delta between the tyres at this stage. So we're actually going to box, and everyone else behind me, boxers who are on the hard tyre, will go in the mediums. And I think there's a few people who have decided to stay out, or a couple of people decided to stay out, but we're going to come out in P3 with brand new medium tyres, and yeah, these should easily be fastest toward the end of the race. So in my mind right now, I was just trying to, again, if I can get these couple cars between myself and Carl, get him out of my DRS zone, then I think that was my best chance of winning the race. If Carl was right with me in the DRS going into the last lap, I think it's going to be really difficult to keep him behind. So going into this turn 1, taking a bit of a gamble down the inside, he almost runs into the back of the Mercedes up ahead, and now we're up into P2. So now we have a car, well, yeah, just one car between myself and Carl at this stage. And right here now, I'm just going to try and get past Schumacher. If we can get 2 cars between myself and Carl, then we can break the DRS. Then I think that is our race win to do. But we were thinking about going upside the hill, but nothing we could do there. And you can see Carl has actually slipped down to P5, so Schumacher has managed to make a move in him. So right now we have 2 cars between myself and Carl. And if I can just get past Schumacher here, Maxi Schumacher, then I think we have the race to lose. This is really crucial for the race right now. If we can get multiple cars between myself and my main championship rival, then that gives me a glimmer of hope for this championship. But as we go into this first last corner, completely misjudged the braking, so I think I broke really late, making contact. Luckily he doesn't spin out, we don't get damage, so I'm gonna have to let him back pass. So I knew it'd be a penalty. If I didn't let him pass, I knew it'd be a penalty, so I've got to let him pass, go into this last corner, and I've got to try and manage this really delicately. So it'd be very easy for me to re-overtake him going down this pit straight, but again, I knew I'd probably be getting the penalty, so I wasn't going to overtake him going into this turn 1. I was going to let him have this corner, and I was very lucky there that he didn't spin out and I didn't get damage. And I think that was a case of just having such a big delta between the tyres. These are very old hard tyres right now, one fresh mediums. The braking distance is going to be much shorter for me, and I think that was really caught me out. But thankfully we both kind of got away unscathed there, and now we've got to just try and regroup ourselves and make a clean overtake. And you can see now Carl is right behind me, but again, we do have an opportunity to put multiple cars between myself and Carl. So trying to get this move done as cleanly as I possibly can, going up into the turn 1, get it done, spotting the braking point really nicely, and with the tyres, the better traction, it gets me done. So again, we have 1 car between myself and the McLaren, and now we've got Schumacher up ahead. And this is another opportunity because Schumacher is on brand new mediums as well. With Maxi Schumacher behind, you can see he's really holding up Carl. You can hear me saying, push as much as possible, because if we could break this DRS, then that's really going to make it a two-horse race going into the final few laps of this race. You can see the gap is over 1 second to P3, but Carl is going to be having the DRS, and he's going to have the DRS in the exit of turn 1. So this was kind of my opportunity to try and break the DRS of Carl, have one car in between us, and at this stage of the race, I think I really should have just kept on pushing with the ERS now. You can see we've got some really good pace in this car and these tyres at the moment. But coming towards the end of lap 32, you can see we were very close to breaking DRS, but I didn't actually push this lap because I needed to think about the last 3 laps of the race. And in hindsight, I think if I knew I had this much more pace over Schumacher, I should have just blasted it with the ERS, gained another half a second. But the thing is, again, the DRS is very powerful. So Carl, despite being 1.4 seconds behind, he's going to have 2 DRS zones. So he's going to get his move done into turn 1 on Schumacher, and then he's going to have the DRS on the exit here. And I knew he'd be using a lot of ERS to try and get as close as he possibly can. So around here, even if you're in the DRS zone, you need to be very close in order to make an overtake. We're on the same lap freshness of tyres. You can see I'm really pushing hard now. So I could have maybe pushed quite hard here to stay out the DRS, but then I'll be running the risk of being very low on the battery. And if he still made it within the DRS zone, I'll be leaving myself very vulnerable. So the goal here was just to push as hard as possible without the battery, force him to use it as much as possible. So even if he gets close to the last lap, I'm just going to have way more battery to defend with. And the overtake button is very powerful in this game. So you can see again, we're not using any of the battery here. We're not even trying to stay out of his DRS zone, because I knew it was going to be very hard for him to save enough battery to attack me again. So you can see coming into the last lap, we've got 7/10 of a gap towards Carl. So pushing really well on this lap. So I'm going to use a little bit of DRS here because there's only really kind of 2 more overtaking opportunities. So it's down this turn 1, exit of turn 2. And it's going to take a really big mistake for me in sector 2 or sector 3 if he's going to be doing the overtake. So saving the battery here, I knew that he'd be running very low just to try and get close to me as much as possible. So it was definitely mine to lose at this stage. We're going to stay on board for the entirety of this last lap. He's pushing really hard with the battery. I could confirm he was under 10% at this time. So he's basically running on fumes at this stage of the race. And all we've got to do now is just keep it on track, keep it clean, focus on getting the good exits. He's the one who's going to have to be taking the risks. And if we just keep it clean, I knew I had the pace. Just don't get flustered, don't make a mistake. And then this is going to be a very nice return to league racing. But going through this section, he actually picks up quite a lot of pace here. So he does this really well. Going for this right-hander, I felt I did this quite well. But you can see he's really close. But again, this is kind of a very high-risk move. No room for him to go down the inside. He's very close going to this last corner, but you're barely breaking through here. So again, would have been a very high-risk move. But coming across the line, managing to take the win at Hungary. It's been a while since the win. And no, if we didn't pit before Carl and we didn't have that track position, this could have been actually a very different race. So overall, I felt like I just managed that race almost to perfection. I think Carl probably was the quicker driver over the race, and the race pace, he seemed to be able to follow me very closely. But I felt like I just made the right decisions. I didn't get any track limits. He had 2 track limit warnings, so I think he couldn't take a risk on those last couple of laps. And I think we just kind of managed it perfectly. So I really hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you head over to www.coachlimitless.com if you like a one-to-one session with me. Hit that join button to get access to my league racing setups, discounts on coaching, speaking to me directly. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be catching you very soon. Peace.